Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and Jerry and I are pleased to welcome Madeleyne Vivanco, a global IT executive and CIO. Madeleyne is currently handling the retail portfolio of Stern Partners in Canada, and we'll be talking about the impact of creating a strategic technology plan that can give you a 360-degree view of your customers. Hey, Jerry, good to see you once again in Chicago. How's things going out there in the Windy City?
Beautiful sunny day. We are having a lot of fun here at Connections with Salesforce. A lot of interesting conversations, many interesting people, and it's fun to be back and meeting people again. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. It is funny, though, from our conversations, Jerry, you're one of these people that is pro, work from home, let people work their own thing at home, not worry about coming to the office. But you really loved hanging out with folks in your industry face to face.
Well, I mean, you have to balance it, I strongly believe in having a good balance between actually having face-to-face and meeting with people and then also being remote whenever it makes sense. So it's really about what makes sense, and you can do both very effectively.
Excellent. Well, today we are joined by Madeleyne Vivanco. She's a global IT executive. Madeleyne, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. Thank you for the invitation. Very happy to be here.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Well, let's start things off. Basically, let people know who you are. I understand you've been in this business for a long time. You started out in Mexico, ended up in Canada, but you work now with Stern Partners. So can you just give us a brief kind of the recap of what you're doing there in your career?
Absolutely. So I am the Vice President of Technology. My organization has been just centralized under a shared services, construct. And my organization enables and supports the largest portfolio of Stern that is comprised of 6 different retail companies.
Wow. Okay. And do you want to plug a couple of those retail companies in case we got some Canadians
absolutely.
watching?
Yeah. So we have fashion retail like Ricky's, Cleo, Suzanne's, and we have Urban Barn, that is a hardwoods, retailer. So that's pretty much, 5 of them are fashion retail, and the one Urban Barn is hardwoods.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to get into a lot of retail digital transformation in a minute, but I always like to start this out with the hardest question, Madeleyne. And it's always the one where people are like, oh my God, this is so hard to answer. But digital transformation, this is what the podcast and what, Jerry's mission is all about. When I say those 2 words together, digital transformation, what does that mean to you?
What it means to me, it's really about bringing a new capability that is transformative to a business that would either increase a new revenue stream or change or modify to the core the way things work, obviously enabled by technology. The concept has been, in the industry for a long time with different names. And we always use technology to make improvements, to drive efficiencies, to do marginal improvements of how we do work. To me, that's, driving efficiencies, but transformation is really calls for a more fundamental change on how the business, creates more revenue or, operates. So that's basically, for me, it's a lot about the behavior that is enabled by technology that results in a fundamental change in how, the business runs.
Jerry, did she pass the test? Was that a good answer?
Wow, that's an amazing answer.
I didn't know I wasn't doing a test.
It was a really good answer. It's really about imagining all the possibilities that the technology can do, all the new opportunities, and then apply it to the business, transform what you are doing significantly from ground up. It's not just tinkering here and there or just digitizing some existing processes, but really transforming the way you work. Like we had all the remote work that has been brought into reality by the pandemic, and it was really transformative. But there are so many other things, like in the way we shop, in the way we interact with companies, in the way, like even a shopping assistant could use a WhatsApp video to assist somebody on the other side of the country. These are all possible because technology makes it possible. And all these transformative things can be done if you open your mind and think, why not? Why? Let me think about it. Let me see how we can reimagine our way of working.
And Madeleyne, it seems as an outsider myself that the retail space has always been the best of them have been forward thinking when it comes to digital transformation, even before the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic accelerated a lot of things that we've discussed in previous episodes. But talk to me about the sort of the mindset of retail to embrace digital transformation.
I think, for retail, it's really more about survival, right? The pandemic showed us that, we have to think differently. And I can tell you, at least for the companies that we have, and in general for retail, is more about seamlessly looking at and again, another concept that has been there for a long time, omni-channel. How do we really converge, the experience of our customers, regardless of where they shop, regardless of where they are in their lives? How do we better understand them, engage them, and really create those meaningful connections with them, either from a brand perspective, but also from a customer experience perspective? And that's where we bring the digitization component of it, right? To get there, however, there are many fundamental platforms or technologies that have to be in place for us to enable that, but also has to be in tandem with the mindset of the companies as well. How do I think omni? And omni, many retailers are very advanced in that regard. But at the same time, how do you transform how you operate? How do you marry even brick and mortar, the digitization, to really reach out to those customers? To me, is more about survival, and to me is really about looking seamlessly at the journey of your customer, regardless of where they are.
It is also an organizational change, an organizational shift that is happening, and bringing that change to your teams and inspiring them to think a little bit differently and embracing new ways of working. I think that's fundamental to the digital transformation process. So whatever, like we all in our industry, we think about project this, project that, but it has to be a more overall view of what you are doing, and you have to look at it more globally as a digital transformation process, and it has to include the people that operate these things once you put them in place, that team change, the shift in their ways of working. So I think that is a very important component of this transformation.
And to dig into that a little bit, what you said, Jerry, all the best executives in the world can acquire all these processes from a third-party company that does these things. But if you don't have the people, the boots on the ground that are embracing these processes and just not checking boxes, that's really difficult. There's no sort of magic wand to make that happen, right, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, the teams have to embrace it. They have to be properly trained. They have to understand where you are going with this. If they don't jump on board on this process, then this is going to go nowhere. You just check some boxes, but the transformation is not happening. So it's super important to make sure that your teams embrace it and are inspired by the change that is coming. And then they can drive it with you. They can even bring suggestions. They can come with ideas, and they can even be part of steering this process of digital transformation if this is done with them on board.
Exactly.
Yeah, Madeleyne, dig into that a little bit, because I'd love to know, since you're an executive, how do you avoid the box checking sort of way of things when people are like, okay, my boss gave me this new digital thing that we got to implement. I'm just going to go through and make sure everything's, and then they could see that I did it. How is that something that you and your team have managed to been able to bridge that gap?
Yeah, in my experience, to keep people engaged in an organization, there has been a lot of literature out there where people need to have a sense of purpose. Why am I here? So you need to start there, as Gerard was mentioning. Why do we have to do this now? Why is it important for us to do this now? And then you have to make it personal. You have to make them part of the journey so they understand it. But also it has to be personal. What's in it for them? Is a reward system at the same time. We are talking about people. Yes, they have to feel inspired and understanding about the purpose. And they also need to be cognizant as to what's in it for them, right? Reward system. Any transformation that means a significant change of how people operate, or making them responsible for areas that they were not before, and they were not rewarded for. And I'm not talking about necessarily or solely monetary reward in general, right? As a performer, there has to be that understanding from our organization transformation as well. How do we make sure those people are in tune with that? And select your key champions. There's always a key champions in an organization that are going to run with it and use them as catalysts to really help ripple all the things that need to be changed. So I think it's a lot of communication, and keeping your eyes open as to what people's concerns are. But a big part is really to get them on board, make them part of the change. That's a key piece.
I think one very interesting subject, and maybe this is my question to you, especially when you had to work with the silos and you had the 6 brands working and you had to make them work together. That was quite a transformational change.
Absolutely. Just to give you an example, as we were looking into replatforming our commerce, platform, Commerce Cloud. Obviously, each company, they were operating, independently. So it was understanding that they had some things that were done differently, some of them, but just the process that we use to have the understanding of the different functionality features with all the representatives across all banners, just all the ahas and the conversation of, oh, you do it this way. Well, this is how I do it. And the questions and the richness that came through those conversations, it was even eye-opening to the banners. So it was just giving them the platform for them to have those conversations and realizing how much more powerful the platform will be, the best practices are, and what we can get out of those capabilities that we're building. So sometimes, we in the position of IT are in a great stand to really break through these silos because we see across. So it's us providing that platform to enable that as we bring initiatives that drive transformation.
Yeah,
but it's interesting how you champion this platform. Like I think that at the company level and overall at the organizational level, somebody had to buy in and say, okay, we'll give you the time and the space to actually have the conversation, because otherwise everybody is really sticking to their own thing, and that's not happening.
Yeah, I think strategically what we have already, declared is that we need to really, we have all the ingredients to really amplify the value at an enterprise level. And that means taking advantage of all the companies that we have in retail. And that means that we have to drive the fundamental platforms in place to drive, to put together, the data that is needed to drive insights, to really do that amplification and those insights, and also to drive efficiencies of operations and costs. So directionally, we said, we're going to standardize, we're going to simplify our ecosystem, and that will put us in a much stronger position. That's where we start. Let's start with our, Commerce Cloud, instances. And that has been, we already said, this is the platform that we're going for. We're going to go to the latest version in an architecture that allows us to understand our customers across all the companies. So we have gone through a very fundamental understanding and decision making on how we're going to construct our instances, or how we're going to create global views of features to increase our speed to value, and then be able to see our customers across the companies.
And Madeleyne, were there any hacks that you discovered when it came to integrating all these 6 brands, the half dozen that you were dealing with, that could be fruitful for someone else who might be going through the same thing you're doing? Was there one little thing? I mean, obviously you talk about the importance of the human connection, but was there something that you learned that you're like, oh, I'm glad I did this step because it helped bring everyone together?
I think one key that I don't know if I would call it hack, but, in my experience, something that has, helped us is, because we are a centralized organization, and any organization that has a central shared services as IT, would have something like this in place. You are really funneling all of the different, needs or aspirations from the companies. And when you bring them to bear and you share it in a context with across the other entities, in our case we have an IT security council where we have the executives across all of the entities. So we go through a criteria prioritization, business value, ROI, et cetera, et cetera. But we bring these ideas, and there have been situations where, oh, we would like to have this as well in our other entities. So that conversation that has been proven very helpful. And obviously now it's a matter of how fast can we get this done, and how quickly we can launch it to market. But is really bringing visibility, hearing what's an idea in one area, and then put it out there with the rest of the executives. If it's an enterprise idea, let's go for it. And that's something that I also observed in my other roles that I had before at a global scale, is the same thing. Because the ideas that may come in one area may be not unique in that area. There might be other ideas, the same idea in other places, but they have not come or shared together. So it hasn't become a bigger idea that you can really translate into a transformation.
Mm. And I was curious, with fashion and retail, it's all about speed. Styles and fads come and go, so you always have to be moving pretty quickly. How important is speed when it comes to IT and integrating all these different sort of retail chains that are, if this shoe is popular now, we got to make sure we get that. We got to get that on the website, get for sale. The speed has got to be probably one of the biggest factors when it comes to succeeding in this digital transformation, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that speaks to really having the proper platforms and the proper, means for the different functions that have to act with that speed to be able to do their jobs. And that means you have to have, stabilization, but also all these tools that give you some, notion of usage of artificial intelligence to be able to also have a better way to predict what is the right fulfillment, what is the right planning, what's the right information that we have, so that you can, create more meaningful and more agile decision making for the retailers. But that is only possible when you have your core platform underpinning that, in place. So it's a great tension, because at the same time you're working on your base, but you'll need to start thinking about those other functionalities and tools that will give them the speed that they require.
You are talking a lot about insights and data, and you're talking a lot about decision making. How do you deal with data and decision making in your everyday life?
Oh, well, that's an area that we are working on to create more in an enterprise level. At the moment, that's the whole point of having a simplified ecosystem of your technology, right? So you don't have a lot of trouble looking at the data that you require. So at the moment, the companies in an unideal way right now, where they're having looking at their data. But as we bring new technologies, or as we drive our initiatives, we are making sure that we do it in a way that we have that foundation in place. All the Salesforce clouds that we have right now implemented. We have a big initiative on the marketing side to increase CRO, our conversion rate optimization, to make it better. And we are using one of the tools in Salesforce to really collect all the data that is required by digital marketing to provide those insights and to be able to act upon them. And we're in the process of creating a business intelligence strategy that actually speaks about, what are the key, insights across the different, lenses of customer views, executive view, operational view, frontline view, so that our organizations can more meaningfully, act upon. So not only, this is how we did last week. Oh, well, that's good. So what are we going to do now differently? So having that ability to provide that information with the different technologies that we have at the moment is going to be an interesting ride, but that's something that we're working on.
How big of a challenge do you think is going to be data and looking at the data and business intelligence moving forward in the industry?
Well, it's going to be a big challenge, because we're talking about different platforms, and just having a proper sound structure of your, whether if it's, data management, who is going to clean the data, where are you going to source it? And it's going to be a big deal. And you know what? It's also going to drive some transformation as well from a processes perspective. Just looking at our inventory, for example, it's a big part of the visibility in retail. So how do we account for inventory? How do we manage our shipments and warehouse, how do we capture them in a way that we can actually have the visibility that we require? So we need to think about as how we render that information, the data, wherever it's coming, has to be agnostic somehow with where it's coming from. So we have to have a way to bridge that gap, knowing that our end state in terms of platforms is not ideal yet. So it's going to be the approach that we're going to be using is based on what is going to be the most important part for us to start with when we think about omnichannel. Right now is our key priority, omnichannel. So what does that mean in terms of data availability and then being able to provide it to our banners?
Yeah, I think like in general in commerce and retail, I strongly believe that the main key component will be matching properly what the customers want and what you can carry in your inventory, what you can sell to them. Because if that match is well done, then you don't have to discount. And if you don't have to discount, your margins will be good. So knowing and understanding the customer preferences and then making sure that your procurement and your supply chain brings to your inventory what the customers actually want will enable retailers and in general commerce not to have to discount that much and will preserve the margins of the business.
You know what? And that's so important. We went through another initiative that we are still, working on, but the construct, the concept, the idea was to use our data to understand our customers and then figure out how do we have now created new segments of our customers through this initiative. So that's a big part of it. I mean, yes, what our customers need, but who are our customers? What's the segmentation? How do we talk to them? How do they buy? What are their preferences? And how then we cater those products to them? Because you're right, we don't want to become a brand of discount. This is a discount brand. And there's, many other examples in other industries where having that sweet spot as to how much you discount, how you create loyalty, how you have the right customers to identify with your product in a way that is, you meet the needs of your customers, but also you are profitable at the same time.
Yep.
At the top, you mentioned some of the 6 brands you're involved with. Can you share an anecdote of one where the e-commerce and digital transformation was able to really make a big change?
I haven't been in the company that long to give you a substantial idea, but just what we shared yesterday in Connections, there was a lot of implementation, some cloud implementation at Urban Barn, and Urban Barn has done very well in terms of adopting these tools and increasing their stand in the customer. So they implemented Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Service Cloud that are really important in understanding, having that 360 view of your customers. And that really drove great results to them. Now we're taking, we're expanding that, adoption of all those platforms at an enterprise level across all of the other banners to have that 360 view. A transformation that we're going to go through, as we implement, for example, Service Cloud across all of the companies, is that, our customer service team is also moving, or just actually moved to the shared services, umbrella. So having a tool that is the same tool that provide them with the ability to better know who they're talking with, and have as a company across all entities the ability to understand the customers that shop in any of the banners that we have. That is really going to be very important for us to market more meaningfully with them and really take them to the journey that is going to increase our profit.
Well, you mentioned 360. Let's get into it. What's your take on the value of that 360 view for the customer?
Well, for me, it's super important because you are in more intimate connection with your customer throughout the journey. So you understand since the moment, they are purchased all the way through, you deliver the product. And then if there's another, touch point where they come back to us for whatever reason. So they're in their journey, you get to know the person, and in knowing them, you can delight them. If a customer calls you, you have the history of them. Okay, this person has bought this for us, or what have you. Then you can delight them in whatever your answer is and whatever you're offering to them, as well as, why not? Why we're leveraging, the different banners that we have. Why could not we, earmark or plant the seed of and the interest in other companies or all of the other products that we have. So we have such a great potential to leverage our all of our banners within the construct that we have at an enterprise level. So
generally also the desire right now in the market, and what we are hearing is that you would want to provide experiences to your customer, not just a transaction. You don't want to be a place where just the transaction is happening. They come to your website or they come to your store, they buy something, and that's it. You want to put them through a journey. You want to engage with them in a more meaningful way. They want to feel that actually there is an interaction between the brand and yourself. There is like a two-way communication. And if that is meaningful, then you end up delighting the customer and having a very good customer satisfaction, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, it's break time, but coming up in the second part of our chat with Global IT Executive and CIO Madeleyne Vivanco, Madeleyne talks about the mindset required to successfully transform digitally.
So a big part of the transformation is going to be about the mindset of why not, and then what else, what others are doing. Is being more actively open and aware of what others are doing, not even siloed or constrained within your industry, to really, move along and then stay on top of instead of catching up.
This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvani.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.